I worked with a porn star some years ago in a professional capacity, my profession. What I learned from that interaction provides an insight into the Pinhas story. The story begins in a place called Shittim, where the Israelites sinned by worshiping the local deity Baal Peor, who was customarily served by defecating on his graven image. I'm not making that up. Pinhas, son of Eleazar, son of Aharon the Kohen, sees an Israelite prince, Zimri, conducting a sexual act with a Midianite princess, Cosby, near the entrance to the tent of meeting. Pinhas gets up and takes a spear in his hand, follows them into the chamber, and stabs them through their chambers, so to speak. The plague against the Israelites recedes after 24,000 fatalities. The zealotry of Pinhas is divinely endorsed and seemingly rewarded with God's covenant of peace and a covenant of unending priesthood. What was so bad about the crime of Zimri and Cosby? It was no mere act of immodesty or public indecency. It was the ultimate act of idolatry, as they were performing a cultic act of a competing religion in the very seat of authority of the Hebrew cult. Israel neighbors ran religions that were essentially sex cults. Israel's competing sacrificial model was the cult of the barbecue. The competition was fierce. The intertribal liaison was profoundly political, in that the culprits were children of high public officials. Imagine the outcry if a member of the US presidential family married a child of the North Korean ruler. In short, Zimri and Cosby were screwing around with critical religious and political institutions. What was so good about the response of Pinhas? The vigilante killing troubled our sages, particularly as the notion of due process was an essential principle of the nascent Jewish civilization. Absent the Torah, that is, rule of law, there's not much special about this people or its God. So unwilling was one sage to admit this violation of due process that he proposed that there had been, in fact, a specific statute officially promulgated stating that an Israelite in the act of intercourse with a Midianite princess in a public area within 500 meters of the tent of meeting justifies deadly force as a first response by a temple authority of the tribe of Levi. Others claimed that the rule of law had not yet come into force. Either way, the conduct of Pinhas in those views did not violate the law. Alternatively, the deadly plague, the political rebellion, and the widespread idolatry in the desert represented the catastrophic collapse of Israelite society in progress. The nation could not survive within the constraint of the rule of law. The fact that the narrative, only 2 paragraphs long, is not even read at once, but is spread over 2 weeks, as if it were 2 unrelated episodes, also reflects the sage's discomfort with connecting the zealotry with the reward. In the end, in defense of Pinhas, we can assert that a violent or lawless response, while never the best choice, is not always the worst choice. The reward of the covenant of peace reaped by Pinhas should not be so surprising. A country may be rewarded for going to war by achieving a peace treaty. A former drug addict or dealer might become a drug counselor. If Pinhas did not get what he deserved, he got what he needed, and he becomes identified in folklore as Eliyahu Hanavi, the prophet of peace and reconciliation. Human sexuality is a wonderful and powerful part of the human experience when it is done well. Classical Judaism seeks to guide that realm so that it will be safe, pleasant, positive for all involved, which is possible but not easily achieved. We do not make sex a cultic practice. Cultic sex, merely as a sideline in recent years, has proven highly destructive. I hear the voice of a porn star telling me that commercial sex and other forms of sex cults do not elevate the human spirit or build positive relationships. People in those cults seek something even better. Those cults are not our path to serving God or humanity. Rather, deeply satisfying spiritual experiences and structured lifestyles can be achieved better by developing the human heart and mind in a more holistic and wholesome way. That's a Jewish theory, anyway. Our sages urge us to celebrate Shabbat with special, nutritious kosher foods and quality emotional and physical relationships, not necessarily meat and definitely not public acts with Midianite princesses. Now, go make Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom.